Hello students, welcome to our video lecture. Basically today we are going to study about articulations or joints. The contents present in this videos are what is the objective of this lecture which we are taking. After that there is a video related to the joints, that what do we understand by joints, as well as what is the different types of joints are there. Next we are going to talk about the definition of joints. After that we will cover the classification of joints as well as the types of joints which is present within our body. After that we are going to cover the disorders of the joints. Next, after that we are going to cover the summary, that whatever we have completed in the lecture there is a brief summary about those, and at last there are references from where the contents has been taken. The objective of this lecture is to gain the knowledge about the joints, what are the function of the joints, which is basically the function that is related to the joints, that what the joints are doing, why it is necessary within our body. After that we are having the classification of joints also along with its types, that there are several types of classifications are there. So based on the classification there are different types of joints, the terminology has been given. First we are going to study about the definition of a joint. So what do we understand by a joint? A joint is also known as an articulation or an articular surface. It is a connection that occurs between the bones in the skeletal system, as well as joints provide the means for movement. So if joints are not there, automatically whatever the movement is happening within our body, that is not being possible. So it is one of the function of the joints, that if without the joints the movement is not possible within our body. By definition, a joint is a point where two bones meet to provide a framework that permits the movement of our body. Basically, when the two bones are joining together, it is connected by the connective tissues which is known as ligaments, as well as the muscles are attached to the bones through the connective tissues. The terminology given to those connective tissues is known as tendons. Now we are going to discuss about the function of the joints. So basically the joints have three functions within a human body. First is it holds the bone together, and next function is it allows the bones for the movement. So whatever the movement is possible, that is only possible because the bones are providing the framework, so that with the attachment of muscles our body is going to move. The third function, it allows the bearing of the weight. So if we are going to lift any weighty material or the heavy material, as well as if we are trying to hold some kind of weight, it is due to all the weight is being borne by the joints in itself. All the bones which is present within our body are at least joined to one another bone, except the hyoid bone, which is the single bones which is present within our body. Now we are going to discuss about the classification of joints. Classification of joints can be done based on two different properties of the joints. First is based on the functional property of the joints, and the next is the structural classification of the joints in itself. So first we are going to discuss about the functional classification. Basically it focuses on the amount of movement being permitted within the joints. It is of three types. The term names are Synarthrosis, Amphiarthrosis and Diarthroses. Next classification is based on the structural component, which means it is based on the type of tissues connecting the bones together. It can be also of three types. First is fibrous joints, next is cartilaginous joints, and third is synovial joints. As a general rule, fibrous joints are immovable joints and synovial joints are freely movable joints. Now in the next slides we are going to discuss each type separately. First, we are going to discuss about the functional classification. As we have studied in the last slide that it is of three types. First, we are going to talk about Synarthrosis. In other words, the Synarthroses are known as immovable joints where no any movement is possible. Primarily, these types of joints are present in the axial skeleton. In these types of joints, the bones are connected with fibrous tissues, which is known as the connecting link is the ligaments, which doesn't allow the movement of these joints to happen. The examples of these types of joints are the skull sutures, the distal tibia and fibula, because basically in these the joints or the junction of these two bones there will be fibrous tissues will be present, which is not allowing the proper movement of that particular joints to happen. Next, we are going to talk about the second type of functional classification, that is Amphiarthrosis. In other words, Amphiarthrosis is also known as slightly movable joints. It is also basically located in the axial skeleton because basically the connecting link or the within the two bones it is connected by a cartilage, which is allowing some kind of movement to the bones, but it is not freely movable in itself. So the examples of these types of Amphiarthrosis joints are intervertebral joints as well as pubic symphysis. The third type of joints based on the functional classification is diarthrosis. The other names for these diarthrosis, that means that they are freely movable joints. Other name for these diarthrosis is also as synovial joints. Basically that synovial means there is a fluid filled within the joint cavity in itself. Primarily it is found in limbs. Plane of movement depend on the type of joints. So basically they are even though they are freely movable, the plane of movement in which direction the movement is possible is depending on the types of joints itself, that where it is located. Now we are going to discuss about the structural classification. Joints are also classified based on the structure of the materials which is being present in between them, the two bones together. First types of structural classification based on that is fibrous joint, which is basically made up of tough collagen fibers which does not allow any type of movement, and it also includes the suture of the skull along with the syndesmosis holding together the ulna in addition to the radius of the forearm. Next type of structural classification is cartilaginous joints. They are said to be made up of bones that are joined together with the help of cartilage. Some examples include the joints present between the ribs and the costal cartilage, and also the intervertebral disc present in the spine of the body. The most common kind of the joint is the synovial joint, which is said to be characterized by the presence of fluid-filled space between the smooth cartilage pads present at the end of articulating bones. Such an arrangement allows the movement of that particular joints or that particular portion of the body. The synovial membrane that lines up the capsules produces oily synovial fluid and lubricates the joints. which reduces the friction and wear and tear of that particular joints or the bones which is forming the particular joints in itself. At last, we are going to talk about the references from where the contents has been taken from. We have taken the contents from the Handbook of General Anatomy, which is written by V.D. Chaurasia, as well as we have taken the contents, some contents from Gray's Anatomy, which was written by the writers Peter L. Williams and Roger Warwick, as well as some contents has also been taken from the textbook of Human Anatomy, which is written by the writer T.S. Ranganathan. The pictures has been taken from the internet, which is basically from the Googles. We have searched and taken the pictures.